All right. Well, welcome everybody. We're glad you're here. Does anybody else feel like we're about to take the FCAT? Okay, sorry. Welcome to Why Music Matters. We have a great panel for you today, some great ideas coming your way. And then we're hopefully going to leave some time at the end for some questions. My name is Richard Davenport. I'm past president of the FBA. I'm currently teaching at Chipley High School up in the Panhandle. I'll introduce the rest of our panel in just a minute. But we're hopefully going to give you some ideas that you can use in your program as we face these unprecedented times, and kind of piggyback on some of the great things that we've already heard today as part of our conference. Our clinicians on the panel here, we have Ms. Kelly Dorsey from Union County High School, sort of northern central Florida. Mr. Jody Dunn from Crestview High School over in Crestview, further west than I am in the Panhandle. Keith Griffiths at Sickles High School down in the Tampa area. Bernie Hendricks from Ocoee High School in Central Florida around Orlando. And then Jim Matthews from Brevard County, who has been in the middle school classroom for most of his life and is now at the county level. So we're really excited to have this panel put together. And we have a set of questions that we sort of came up with to kind of focus on what we're going to talk about. Before we get to that first question, this is kind of the focusing statement that we came up with to kind of keep us on track of what we want to talk about today. And the fact that we are such high profile professionals as music teachers, that we have to create a trust between ourselves and our community. And what are some of the ways that we create great citizens and great people through teaching the art of music? And so that's kind of the direction we're taking today. Our first question is, how do you create a positive relationship between your program and your community? And Bernie, why don't you take that one?
All righty. Hello, everyone. Great to be here. Glad you're all here. And hopefully we can help everyone get a little bit of just some stuff you may know, some stuff you may not know. So straight to the question, how do you create a positive relationship between your program and the community? I'm going to give you I'm going to give you three things here real quick. The first one is be a good person. All right. It's very simple. Be a good person. Honesty, integrity, have great core values. I've had people say to me, I remember this specifically about 2 or 3 years ago. I had a man come up to me after one of our football games, and he said, Mr. Hendricks, I just want you to know that my daughter graduated from Ocoee 4 years ago, and we come to the games just to watch you jump around and act like a fool every Friday night. And I was like, great, so they just come and still support, even though their kid doesn't go to the school anymore, because they like the energy that they saw coming from me. People will support you if you're a good person, plain and simple. All right. So think about that. And we, as a band community, we've had our share of, and we don't need any more. So we just need good people with good core values. And, you're here always putting your students, the best interest of your students is always in the forefront, rather the best interest of you. So number one, be a good person. Number two, have a good product. I mean, if the band sounds decent, people will want to listen to it. Now, there's a couple of things in that have a good product. Of course, you got to study. You got to study your craft. All right. I think the biggest thing that we all fall short of, not all of us, don't get me wrong there, but I think the biggest thing that some of us fall short of is the ear of our peers, our fellow band directors. We have a tendency to get in a zone and we do everything and we're tunnel vision. And then we don't say, hey, man, can you come over and listen to this? Or let me record the group and just listen to this, give me some feedback. It's one of those things where we can hear a certain thing, and although some of us have great ears, our ears aren't perfect. And it's always good to have those other ears to come in and listen. So when we're saying have a good product, don't just depend on yourself to create that good product. Use your peers. One of the things that I've discovered over the years of my 24 years of teaching is that band directors are really helpful. We don't mind helping up. Now, we're all busy, and most of us are somewhat unorganized. I'm just saying. Some of us aren't organized. But we're all willing to help each other out when we can. So why not ask? So have a good product, because nobody wants to hear a crappy band. Nobody wants to support a crappy band director with a bad attitude. So if you can nip those two things in the bud from the beginning, then you'll probably be successful. So again, number one, be a good person. Two, have a good product. Don't depend on yourself completely to have that good product. And the third and final thing that I want to mention here is everybody needs to understand that you, as the director of your program, you are your number one advocate. You're the best advocate for your program. There's nobody else that can sell your program better than you can. And that's in every way, shape, or form. So when you're at the grocery store that happens to be in your neighborhood, people, oh, that's the banner. I was walking down the street today, this morning, on the West Orange Trail. Of course, I had an Ocoee shirt on, and some guy, hey, man, ain't you the band right now, Ocoee? My response was, if you like the band, yes. And they were like, yeah, great. We love the band. All right, great. Yeah, I'm the band director. So remember, you're always representing your program, especially if you live in an area where you are in the area of your program, if that makes any sense. Like I happen to live in the city of Ocoee. The school I teach at is Ocoee. And I know some of the other panel members are in the same predicament where everything, Kelly's story where she said she knows everyone and everybody knows her. And that's a plus, but you have to use it to your advantage and understanding that you can always promote your program in a positive way. So number one, be a good person. Number two, have a good product. Number three, you are your number one advocate.
All right. Thank you, Bernie. Awesome. Anybody else want to chime in? Great. Our second area we talked about was what is your primary marketing tool that you use to market your program in your community? And Kelly, we'll start with you.
So it really ties so well into what Bernie was just talking about. A very quick little story. In my community, we have one elementary school, one middle school, one high school. The middle school and high school are joined by the bus loop. All of the kids ride the bus at the same time. They pick up the elementary school kids, come to the high school. The teachers' kids get off, come to our rooms. Everybody else gets on the bus. They take them all home. And it's not a problem having seniors and pre-K kids on the same bus because they're all related. So it's fine. But like he said, you go to the store. And so for me, I'll see some little kid in the grocery store and you can see them looking at me. And then they'll go to the next aisle and then finally they'll get brave and say, hey, you're that band lady, right? And I go, yes, I am. So I start recruiting that young and I go, well, you're going to be in the band, right? And they go, I don't, I said, oh no, I'll say, I know where you go to school too. I know you. And they go, you do? I said, yeah. You go to Lake Butler Elementary School, don't you? And they're like, oh, yeah, well, there's only one school. They don't realize that I've got 100% chance of getting it right, but the parent is just trying not to laugh. But they appreciate the fact that I took the time to talk to their little child, and they won't forget that. And so you kind of live in a glass house because it's an extremely high profile position in these little towns, and I would bet within your school as well. So for me, how you're going to market your program, there's really, you have the students, the administration, the community, and the parents. Those are your primary areas that you have to sell your program to. How do you do that? So everybody has their own ways of recruiting. Some of the big things that we do, that's a lot of fun. We do a lot of collaboration, K through 12. We are all kind of one program. In fact, the middle school and high school shares one budget, and we team teach. And then the elementary director comes and team teaches at the high school with me and after school. And so she'll do a unit at the elementary school on the instrument families. And at the end of that unit is about the time that we're ready to go to district marching in PA. And the county will bus the entire elementary school over to our stadium, 1,000 kids, pre-K through 4, because the 5th graders are housed at the middle school, and then they get walked over. And we will do the whole dog and pony show. This is a flute, this is a clarinet, and each section will play a cool little ditty something that the elementary school kids will recognize and they can get on board with. Plus, she has taught them how to sing the fight song, because there's only one school at each level. We're all purple and gold tigers. It's really easy to be a unified community. So when we do homecoming parades, we literally march through the bus loop at the elementary school, and all those little kids are singing the fight song as we go by, and they're all singing the fight song at the games. So we make sure we do stuff like that. She'll teach them, you know, the Hey song, so they can all scream something that they can get on board with. You know, the drum line plays, whatever those little kids can identify with. Then same thing as far as identification goes. For the parents and the community members, we're doing shows that they can relate to. It doesn't have to be music that they know, but it has to be music that they can relate to. Are they going to get up and go get a hot dog during their performance, or are they going to stay and watch? Which I think Jim's going to talk about that a little bit later on. I mentioned that I team teach. I go down to the middle school and I team teach the beginning band with our awesome middle school director. We're just very blessed to have a really great unified music team here in our county. And so we work very closely together, and he comes and teaches with the marching band as well. So those kids are seeing my face all the way through, from the time they are in pre-K on up. They're seeing my face, because for kids, it's the fear of the unknown. If they don't know who you are, the chances of them getting involved are greatly diminished. We also, we spend a lot of time giving shout outs to our parents, because we have concessions for middle school, JV, and varsity. I know that's a very unusual situation, but we're in an unusual area. And so our parents are getting worked a lot, and they're putting a lot of extra hours in. So we are very, very good about making sure we're sending out, blasting out texts, you know, hey, congrats, thanks, you know, you guys are awesome, we can't do it without you, which is absolutely true. And then during games, the radio station is there, which Jody's going to talk about a little bit too. But we make sure that, well, actually, I don't even have to make sure. They're always seeking us out. So we'll get an interview on the radio. The radio station will make sure that they broadcast our halftime show. They give shout outs to the kids. We send out letters during the summer for sponsorships. We announce the upper level sponsors at halftime. Your halftime entertainment is being sponsored by so-and-so and so-and-so. It's on our website. We shout out on Facebook. And then as far as administration goes, I'm constantly letting them know about the great things that are going on in our classroom. I work very, very hard to make sure that no negativity hits that principal's office or that superintendent's office. Because in our area, they're gonna jump right over your head and go straight to the superintendent. I mean, it's a very small county, so I have the sheriff's cell phone and he has mine. I have the superintendent's cell phone and he has mine. I mean, that's how small our area is. And so I have found the #1 way to keep the negative out of there is for you to have great communication with your parents. If that solves 98% of your issues. So the principals and the superintendents, they want to brag on you. They want those bragging rights. And it doesn't have to be about trophies. It has to be about how much the community is on board with that program. So, Jody.
So yeah, this is such great information, and to hear from my colleagues about how things are done in different ways throughout the different areas of the state. We're a little different up here too. Crestview is still what I would consider to be a small town, even though it's growing a lot and there's too many cars on the road, but we only have really 2 roads in town, and one of them stays clogged up all the time. But there's 1 high school in town, and I have 2 middle schools that feed my high school. And so I'm able to visit those middle school students a lot. But what I thought I'd talk about as far as marketing the program, and I'm going to go kind of in order throughout the year. And starting in the summer, of course, on a normal year, I don't know how this year is going to look, we'll go through our camps like everybody else does, and we have what we call Meet the Band Night at the end of our band camp. And by that time, we have kind of put the rough draft of the opener on the field. And we also do a pregame show, kind of like a little bit of a collegiate style pregame show. And we do that in the stadium. I put them in their travel uniforms, and we all get out there. And the cool part about that's not a new or original idea. I know a lot of people do that, but we advertise it. And I invite school board members and our superintendent and local politicians, the mayor, who up until recently was former band director Dave Cadle. So that was kind of cool. But that, I'll just, as an aside, Dave Cadle, being the band director here for all those years, he retired and immediately became mayor of our city. That kind of tells you the weight of the band program in this town. It's a very visible, important thing and always has been. So at that Meet the Band night, we fill up the entire home side of our stadium with people that have come from the community, and yes, moms and dads, but a lot more than that, just to come see the band. And I always have my entire administration on site with me, and I have my principal talk to the crowd. I have the football coach, the head coach, comes, and I make sure he sees who's actually coming to the games. He looks at the entire home side filled up with people there to watch the band, and it creates this sense of unity in the school, and it also creates a buzz around town. So that's where we started. Then throughout the course of the year, as much as I can, I like to visit the middle schools like we all do. But when I go to Shoal River Middle School, or when I go to Davidson Middle School, I like for those students to say, when I say, hey, what band are you in? I want them to say, I'm in the Crestview Band at Davidson, or I'm in the Crestview Band at Shoal River. And I have the greatest assistants and middle school directors. It's just an unbelievable team that I have. And they're really on board with that all coming together idea. So that's an important thing. We take one of our Thursday rehearsals for the marching band, and I put my band in our uniforms, and we sacrifice one of our rehearsals and walk to the stadium. Here's another thing you should know about Okaloosa County. We play middle school football. Yay. And the middle school bands are there, and they get on the field and they make a block and they play Louie Louie or Lowrider or whatever it is that, And so on that Thursday night, it's called Middle School Band Night. And I take my band, I walk them over for the halftime, and we all get in a big block on the field, color guarding everybody, and the other two middle school bands join us. And we've got over 500 Crestview band students on the field at once. And we play with them. We play one of the Davidson songs, and we play one of the middle school, the Shoal River songs. They have shared each other's music. And we do that. Then the middle school kids run off the field and sit and watch us as we do our show. So I'm doing our show in front of the middle school students and their parents. And again, creating that buzz and that unity and that togetherness in our town as far as the bands go. So that's a very cool thing that really has. Oh, and after the performance, third quarter, my students who went to Davidson Middle School, they go up into the stands with a Davidson band, and my students who went to Shoal River Middle School go to there. And if they moved in, they just pick one and go to. And it's a third quarter party. We play their songs, they play our songs. It's just a hoot. It's not real good, but it's a lot of fun. And it's one of the highlights of the fall for my kids love it too. So the other thing that's unique, I think, and a very important marketing tool specifically to this question for the Crestview High School Band, Richard mentioned, and I think Kelly mentioned a while ago, the radio. We have a radio show every week before the football game. It's called the Big Red Machine Show. And my assistant and I go to the local radio station and we produce a show. We go on Wednesday, but we pretend it's Friday. And my dad is actually the one who produces the show. And we've been doing it for 28 years. And so before the head coach's show comes on, the Big Red Machine Show comes on, and we talk about what the band's doing this week. We talk about the show. We talk about how we do what we do. We talk about our fundraisers. We talk about our trips. We talk about festivals that we're going to go to. we get the word out. And you would be surprised, it's a local FM radio station, but it has a lot of followers. People listen to that show, and it's just something that we've done, like I said, for 28 years, and it's an important part of how we relate to our community. And then kind of go back to what something Bernie said. It's important that you are connected to your community, and it's important that you are visible in your community. And it can be a little bit of a drag sometimes, being the guy, the girl, the lady, the band lady, the band guy that everybody knows, because you really can't go anywhere. When my kids were little, we'd go to Walmart and I would get stopped on every aisle and they would say, "Daddy, do you know everybody?" And so that's, and I kind of, you know, has its good points and bad points, but if you do it right, it can create this sense of goodwill in the community. If you're the good person Bernie was talking about, we have to hold ourselves to a higher standard. As a professional, as an educator, and as someone who has the potential to influence so many children for such a long period of time, and we have to understand that our role goes beyond just teaching notes and rhythms. That's kind of just a small part of it. We use music to teach children how to be, and we have to begin with an example that we can set for them, because band, for a lot of children, I don't care where it is, that may be the only family they have and the only structure they have, and that's a huge responsibility. And so Bernie's exactly right. When you're out in the community, we have to be held to a higher standard of everything for that reason, and something we should all take very seriously. But being visible in the community, I'm sure there's a restaurant in your town like the one that's in our town. It's called Tropical Palm in Crestview. It's been here forever. There's nothing tropical about it, and there are no palm trees anywhere. I have no idea why it's called Tropical Palm, but we all meet there, and it's kind of like Cheers. Sometimes you want to go where everybody knows your name. I walk in, and they have my coffee and my Diet Coke ready to go. And the people, I talked to a person today asking about the band, it's an important connection with your community. And I think that we've said this at least 2 or 3 times, communication is the best marketing tool you have, whether it's, and we use Facebook and email and Remind 101, and I missed all the other stuff. I don't know what InstaTweet or Snap Talk or, I don't know that. But I know that it can be a very successful, effective tool. So communicate, be involved, bring your community to you, reach out to your community, get on the radio, get on your local TV station, invite dignitaries to your performance, do something like that. Take your jazz band out and take your chamber groups out and just be visible. Be an integral part of your community. And I think, and I'm going to say one more thing, Kelly mentioned it. The most visible thing we do is on Friday night. And if you're losing touch with the football crowd on Friday night, you're going to lose relevance. You're going to lose support because they're not going to pay attention. And that, fair or not, that's the way it is. Because they're not going to come listen to us at district concert MPA. The mamas and daddies will, but the crowd's just not going to do that. They may see you at a parade. That's why you better be good at parades, because that may be the only time anybody in the whole town sees you is at the whatever parade you have to do. And I've seen many recordings, Bernie, of bands in a parade. I'm just going, really? You know, have a good product. Be relevant to your audience and support your supporters. Otherwise, you could just, you know, artsy yourself right out of, you know, being relevant at all. So communicate, be involved, and pull everybody in as much as you can.
All right. Bernie, why don't you talk about how you use social media to promote your program.
All right. Great segue. Wasn't
Yeah.
that perfect? It was perfect. Good job, Jody. Okay. So the social media, before I want to piggyback real quick, because you guys, everybody heard from Jody and Kelly, and they're in that small community, but a lot of us teach in big metropolises. Doesn't really matter, y'all. It's the same stuff. It's the same stuff. You just have to figure out how to make it work in your situation. All right. So don't freak out because, Kelly was like, well, I got the superintendent's number and they got mine and so forth and so on. That's Lake Butler. It's just, it's a small area, but you got to have that same type of mentality within your zone of wherever you teach, whether it's like here in Orange County, it doesn't matter. It's the same concept. Just make it fit for you. Now, social media, Snap, tweet, chat, TikTok, Insta, whatever. Let me tell y'all something. Every kid in our program, in our school, is on their phone doing something social media. I guarantee it. Whether you like it or not, it's just where we are as a society right now. If you want to grow things in the different way, in the new age way, you got to figure out, how can I meet the kids where they are? They're there. They just don't know how to talk the way that we can talk. They talk in hashtags and emojis. And that's okay, because that's where they are. Now, once we get them in the classroom, we can teach them a whole new type of language and music. But you got to get them there first. So it's okay to have an Instagram page, all right? As long as it's positive and you are monitoring it. Now, this is the thing that I ran into is I don't know how to do all that stuff. Right, Jody? I don't know how to do all that stuff. So what did I do? I asked my students, who's good on Instagram? And when I asked that question, all of the kids pointed to the same person. I said, well, I just created a new leadership position. It's called the social media leader. I just made something up on the spot. And the kid like, are you serious? I get to run our Instagram page? I said, not only do you get to run it, but you get to teach me how to use it. Oh my gosh, I have value in my life now. Not before they didn't before, but you know how kids are. You give them a job and they go crazy. And our Instagram, with me running it, had like 14 followers. And now I think we got 12 or 1,300 followers. Because I let the student do what she was already doing, but I told her it's just to help promote the band. And I know other programs do the same thing, where they're taking pictures at their middle school night and they're tagging the middle school kids. And now all the middle school kids are following the high school band on their Instagram. And you could do the same thing with Twitter. You could do the same thing with Snapchat. You could do the same thing with TikTok. I know, look at Jody, stop looking like that. I rolled off all these different things, but I have a different student in charge of each one. But everything flows through myself and and Jennifer, the associate director. That way we're always monitoring these things. We're always making sure that whatever is going out to the public is public approved and public appropriate. But I do think that this social media thing, I think it's important for you as a band program to establish some type of presence on social media, because it's where the kids are. Now, it may be different in different areas of the state. Right here in Orange County, it seems like TikTok and Instagram are it. Those are the two hot spots where teenagers spend, I don't know, hours and hours and hours, and Snapchat. So we have all three. The kids, this is Mr. Hendricks, I'm about to send this out. And I'm okay. And when I started TikTok, Jody, like you said, I had no idea what a TikTok was. I was like, is that some type of clock or something to keep time? And they were like, no, it's like you put these little videos. Mr. Hendricks will just show you. So they showed me. And so I started doing it. And I was like, guys, how come I'm not getting any likes on my TikToks? And they were like, well, because one, your TikToks are a little lame. And two, there's certain hashtags that you have to put. I was like, well, how about you be our TikTok person? So we were at a parade. It was the Apopka MLK parade. And I had this conversation with this student, and I put her in charge of it. And she was like, all right, give me your phone. And I'm like, no. She said, well, how can I do it? I'm not. I was like, okay, go ahead. So I gave her my phone, and she went and she did a little, I don't know what she did. She did a TikTok, published it, and it got like 1,000 likes in like 15 minutes. I'm like, what did you do? She was like, it's just certain hashtags that you have. I didn't know all that stuff. I just learned what a hashtag was. Every time I see a hashtag, that's like a number sign. All right, anyway, find a way to make yourself or your programs relevant on social media, because that's where the kids are. They live in that world. You know what I'm saying? So if we can meet the kids in that world, in their environment, they're just gonna flock to it. They're gonna flock to it and be like, man, I got a shout out on the Ocoee Instagram. What did you get? Nothing. All right. So that the social media thing, I do believe it's important. I think that, but everybody has to figure out where you get in. We use our Facebook page mainly to communicate with parents, because the kids say Facebook's for old people. That's fine. Are your parents on Facebook? And they say, yeah. And I say, okay, tell them there's a band Facebook page. And they all like the band Facebook page. And then we put information, calendars, and stuff like that. If you are still, I'm going to say this last thing about this social media. If you are still one of those, I'm going to print out a piece of paper that has this week's information, and I'm going to make 100 copies, and I'm going to pass it out to every kid. Just go outside the band room and see how many are laying on the floor, or down the hallway. Take that same thing, turn it into a Google Doc, and send the kids the link, and they'll actually look at it. Or something that we changed because they stopped reading it was, now we do 3 to 5 minute information videos. It's called It Is What It Is. That's because the kids said that's kind of cool. So we do these little 3 to 5 minute videos. It's me and Miss Brown and whoever else that I need to, just giving announcements. We make it a link, and I put it in their Instagram, say, here's this week's information. I send it out to the parents. You can send it out through Remind, and it's a link, and it's fun, and it's kids looking at me make a fool out of myself, which I'm good at, but I'm giving them the information that they need. So you got to find a way to meet the kids where they are. And I don't get a million questions about, well, what time is this? When is this happening? Because it's all, and if I do get it, did you read the update? Or now, since we started this thing, this whole It Is What It Is, we started during the pandemic because I was bored and I didn't have anything else to do. So now it's like, I get text messages, Mr. Hendricks, you gonna send out another video this week? I was like, man, y'all tripping. Leave me alone. I got other stuff to do. Just sit around and send out videos. Anyway, you get the idea. Social media is your friend. Everybody say that with me. Social media is your friend. You got it? All right. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Bernie. Let's bring Keith in now to talking about meeting the kids where they are. What are some things that, Keith, that you do in your school to keep the kids involved, even though they're involved in everything else at that school?
Thanks. Hearing that, it reminds how nice and therapeutic it's going to be when we finally start getting asked questions that we know an answer to. Again, like, Mr. Griffiths, how do I make AP Human work with band? I have an answer to that. Mr. Griffith, what are we going to do about Friday night football games this year? Is pretty much all my email is. So this one I kind of do actually have an answer to, and I'm looking forward to that. Again, what I'm going to attempt to do is going to be a technological feat for me, and I'm going to share my screen, and it is here, and share. I think the first thing that we have to do, can y'all give me a thumbs up if you're able to see that? Was that a successful thing? I think the first thing that we have to do is become experts in what it takes for a kid to be enrolled in our program and graduate from our school, whether that's middle school or high school. I think we should never be allowing ourselves to rely on a guidance counselor or a guidance department to be doing our advocating for us, or to be the only one that can explain to a kid how they can keep their electives in their schedule and still do all the other things that they want to do. So this is one of the documents that I hand out to any 8th grader that's in band. And it just shows how music easily fits into this schedule. Now you'll see in Hillsborough County, yes, we are on a 7-period day, which is very nice. As you can see, there's the propensity for any freshman to take 3 electives, which is awesome. Of course, how FTE and all those other things work out. Now the elective marketplace, of course, is just incredibly saturated. There's so many options that they have. So I always like to pass this out to be able to point to, they go, how am I going to be able to do ROTC and band? I don't see how that's going to happen. And I can actually walk them through their freshman year and go all the way through to their senior year, showing them how this can happen easily. This is a document that I got from our supervisor's office, Ted Hope, and I sat down with my guidance department, and they said, wait a second, we can make this even better for you. And they helped me modify this thing, and I'm more than happy to share this or any of the other things. You know, there's the online class requirement that I like to remind kids, you know, take care of one of these classes online. You're going to have to anyway. With all of this, something tells me that they're not going to have any problem meeting an online class requirement probably anytime. But things like that in the state of Florida that they're going to have to do, and they can make even more room in their schedule with jazz band on their class. To me, it's just really important that we are the experts on that and not just relying on a guidance counselor. The other thing that I give them is a document that just shows everything that I have students doing in addition to band. And really this probably needs to be updated, especially like the jobs here. I mean, they are working everywhere in a 10-mile radius of the school. And when I put this in the other document in an 8th grader's hand, I can say, you know, point to something that you are currently doing that you have a hesitation, that I'm, you know, showing you right here now that you're going to be just fine and be able to. You know, I'm always loving to add to this list. And so if they're doing some kind of, I don't know, underwater basket weaving or whatever, great, let me show you how we're going to be able to make our program work with that. Of course, I think that probably first comes from us as directors taking an honest and inward look at ourselves and our programs and making sure that we are actually prioritizing making our programs accessible, equitable, equal, and all of that. Do we really believe that band is for everyone that's on that campus? And certainly I hope the answer to that is yes. I mean, the data is what, 10% of high school students are currently enrolled in a band course or orchestra class. And I think it's really important that we're constantly asking ourselves, are we okay with that? I mean, what are we doing? Where is the disconnect that we can get more students involved in the program? And so I think the schedule part of it, and I think the other activities. I mean, even I've had kids that were worried, well, my garage band, you know, I don't know that I'm going to be able to work out that schedule and this schedule, and just being able to show them as often as you possibly can, you know, look, I've got this listed for you here already, and you that helps us be successful. So, and like I said, I'd be happy to share either of those documents.
Good stuff. Yeah, we'll get that from Keith and get it posted when we get the video posted on the FBA website. Good stuff. Let's wrap up our part of the program here with what do kids get from you as a music teacher and from your program. Let's start with Kelly.
Well, you know, one of my main goals is, and it's even in our mission statement on our website, is that I want the kids to be lifelong learners. In other words, when they graduate from high school, are they going to put that instrument away and never pull it out again? Or are they maybe going to put it away for 10 years and pick it back up again? I hope so. Or are they just going to keep going? I hope so, even more. But they can't do that if they're not lifelong learners, if they don't know how to teach themselves at that point. And that statement really kind of hones in a theme I've been hearing lately. Are the kids learning or are they memorizing? And that's just kind of need to let that hang there for a second. Are they learning or are they memorizing? And that's something that we kind of need to think about throughout the whole 4 years. What is it that the kids know? But so we want them to be able to hone their craft well enough so that they can be involved, they can become patrons of the arts, they can encourage their children to become patrons of the arts, their community members around them. But even more than that, I want my kids to be good people, and that's what Bernie talked about in the beginning. I mean, I'm always telling them, go do something nice for someone. Be a good person. Set the example. Represent yourself well, not just us. And do that when nobody is looking. Have the integrity of being what you're supposed to be when you're supposed to be. And, you know, those are just lessons that they just kind of escape these kids a lot these days. And I you know, our parents probably said the same thing about us. I don't know, but I just think it bears repeating. Generation after generation is just be good people. And The other thing, you know, Bernie and Jody both talked about is that we have to be that example, because the kids are spending so much time with us. They're learning a lot from us, sometimes what not to do, hopefully more what to do. But I've always said in our position, because it is so high profile, whether it just be in our school system or in our entire community, you have to live in a glass house. You know, Jody said being around town, and same thing with me. When I had my kids with me when we first moved out here, and my son was very young, and we went to some store, and the cashier was cashing us out, and she said, "Can I get you anything else, Miss Dorsey?" And he looked up and said, "How do you know my mom?" And she just laughed, said, "Honey, everybody knows your mom." And I just like, see, that's why you have to behave because I'll know you're in trouble before you do. But it's just so important that our kids see us. If we're going to spend so much time preaching to them about how they should behave at a game, at a concert, in the auditorium, in their classrooms, we have to be setting that example all the time as well, even out in public. But I feel like we need to make sure that we're always remembering what kind of example we're leading with that. So I'm going to turn it over to Jim at that point, because he's a much more eloquent speaker on this subject than I am.
Save the best for last. Jim.
That's right.
I feel like one of the Brady Bunch here, y'all. 6 boxes here. All right. So anyway, well, I think what y'all have heard from everyone is you are
music matters.
Key point of this whole thing. You're the key point of the largest program, hopefully, or getting there in the entire school. You know, when you look at sports and all that kind of stuff, it's all these separate little sports and everything, but the music program is usually like the biggest thing in there. And I was talking to this group of people here, distinguished people, when we did a little run through earlier, that look at what the impact of band or any type of music program has had on school, the school itself, since the beginning of band programs, chorus, orchestra programs in schools. The leadership of your school comes from that. All the activities, your kids are the most active kids on the entire campus. They're the highest rating. Most of you could say that most of the valedictorians, I know at Titusville High School, almost every year the valedictorians coming out of that band program, chorus, or orchestra. And so you are around the most influential students. And so like Bernie said, like Jody said, or everybody said so far, yes, the things that you do are super important. But when you let kids loose with the directive, you go promote this program, you know, like you were saying, Bernie, put them in charge of stuff, develop their leadership skills, get them thinking positive, get them speaking positive. Then you have unleashed a bunch of advertisers all over the place. I would never squash that. In our feeder chain, Titusville is a small town as well. When Ian came on board, I said, I want a mentoring program. I want your kids to come over. We have no private teachers here in this town at all. So we don't have a chance of anyone making, you know, All-State or anything unless they go out of town to get lessons. Would you please do a mentoring program with me? Would you send your kids over once a week? And so on our campus, I'm not lying to you, it'd start out really big, you know. We'd have about 100 kids. 2 on 2 everywhere, all over. We took over the entire school. The teachers were complaining, man, there's band kids everywhere. And I'm like, hey, and there were no other mentoring programs in any subject at our school. And within about 2 or 3 or 4 weeks of that, then we noticed math mentoring happening and social studies and science mentoring. Everybody saw what in the world was going on with the band kids everywhere. And then they got to know the high school kids, and the high school kids are like baking them. Mr. Matthews, can I bake them brownies if they play well? You know, next time I said, you do whatever. Yeah, give them treats or whatever like that, little dog treats and stuff. I'm just joking. Anyway, and so the positive coming from the kids, all I did was go around and monitor. Now, all those kids had come through my program. They knew my standards. Pretty soon they're going, we know how busy you are. We know how many kids are asking to do pass-offs and stuff. Will you allow us to do the pass-offs? And so I met with them and I talked through them and I played some things for them. And I said, all right, if they can do like this, yes. Next thing you know, and I just told the kids, look, I'm gonna ask you in class to play one of those pass-offs from that teacher. I want to make sure that they have my same standards. Now that little vein went out all over the place, and kids were just between the two schools going everywhere. And Ian said, I need all of us to start going to everyone's concerts. Like, what? So there's like 5 elementary schools and the middle school and the high school at Christmas concerts. Oh my gosh, we were exhausted. But every single elementary teacher could turn around and point to all the music teachers for the entire chain behind us. There's the high school band, orchestra, chorus teacher, the middle school band, orchestra, chorus teacher, other elementary teachers. We were at everything. Pretty soon, the community was just saturated with us. Remember, somebody told me this a little while ago. They said they don't sign up for a band, they sign up for you. And when they sign up for you, like everybody else says, they are going to watch you at the grocery store. They're going to watch your demeanor. And I'm going to go into this last little bit here because we're almost out of time here. What you do for individuals on your campus is the biggest advocacy you could ever do. You know, we're the ones checking their grades. We're the ones that teachers come to and say, Mr. Matthews, so-and-so and so-and-so is failing math, and they're failing English, and they're failing social studies and science and whatever like that. And you're not going to be able to take them to the concerts unless you can pull their grades up for me. I'm like, oh my gosh, thank you. So, you know, but you do that, and you check on these kids, and you look up their grades, and you encourage them, and you speak to their parents about everything, not just band, but you build kids up. And that's the biggest advocacy for you. I hand out I like slips, and I know that sounds elementary, but it's really not, because I've heard of high school band directors and orchestra and chorus saying that they write their students notes at the end of the year, you know, like their seniors notes and stuff like that. On my little I like slips, I would always try to not just focus on their accomplishments. We all have high achievers. I wanted them focused on their character. And when I spoke to their character, they would do anything for me. And especially the bad ones. They were always first on my list, man. I hit every bad kid in there, man. I had this kid, his name was Mike. And this was before they had all of these rules and regulations. Mike was a goth kid. And he came every day in his thing. What instrument did he play, y'all? Drums. Anyway, so, and he had this nose ring. He had a nose ring right here. It had a chain, and it went right up to his ear. And there was an ear ring in there. There's a big old whatever. And he had that thing, and I said, Mike, you know I can't teach with that thing. I can't look at that thing and teach you. You know? I said, for me, would you please take that out every day you come in? And so he'd go, all right, Mr. Matthews, and he'd take that out. He'd go back there. Well, I had a stuttering issue. Anyway, I'm not going to go there. I got medical attention for that. But anyway, and so one time I was talking to the band, and I was stuttering, man. And Mike from the back of the room said, spit it out, you stuttering freak. And the classes went zip quiet, and they were like, what? And I started laughing, and I said, that was good, man. All right, see me afterwards. We're going to talk about appropriateness. But anyway, but I tried to have a relationship with the kids that spoke to them about them and character. And when you do that, parents are going, you've changed my child's life. I saw that note you wrote down. And when they're hanging on the refrigerators, and when they come back from college and the parent threw the note away and the kids are crying because they threw what I said about them away, then you've got the community hooked. And when Kelly said, Jim's going to talk to you about something, look, I sat, and this is it, I sat at a marching MPA this past year, and all of the county people were there. The superintendent, assistant superintendent, all of them were sitting there. And the bands are real small, and they're doing shows that nobody's ever heard the music, didn't understand how the show flow went. It wasn't meeting the audience. It was just like, wow. And the superintendent came back and he said, what happened to bands? What happened to band? And then another one said, where are all the big bands? I said, well, there's some good large groups coming out at the end. And the point of that is they're not relating to what we're putting out for them anymore. So it's almost like we're committing, you know, career suicide by what we're choosing to play in public for our kids. Look, if they're at football games and they're at that marching MPA, play stuff that they're going to want to run to hear your band play. And relate to the audiences. And that's a huge advocacy, because that is the most seen musical program out of anything in your whole community, is the high school marching bands. When we did our parades, man, I tried to make sure that my parade was polished, man. My winter concert might take a little hit because there were going to be thousands of people at the parade. So I want to make sure my parades were really good and the best we could possibly do. Those type of things are huge, huge advocacies for you. Relate to the audience, relate to your community, change the lives of every single individual you can. Fill out those little I like slips in there. By the way, I also asked the kids to fill those slips out too. I made a whole stack of them and put them on top of this cabinet in our band room. And I said, anytime somebody does something with great character, you feel free to get up out of your seat and go pick one of those up and fill it out and give it to them. And when they were doing that kind of stuff, the whole atmosphere of my band program became about trying to notice all the great things of every single kid. The infighting stopped. They were all trying to be like these good character cops. And I just thought it was awesome. So anyway, the mentoring thing helped really solidify that whole thing. And then lastly, share your vision with the entire community. Share your vision, what you would like to do inside the school, and do everything you can for the school. Not just your music program, but do stuff for the whole school. I mean, I bought our school everything. I bought PE coaches, microphones so they didn't have to scream in the gym, the headsets. I bought a vending machine for the school so the clubs could put all their candy and crap in there, and they would be, each one of them got it for a month or whatever like that. I did everything I could for the whole school so that everybody believed in us. Our band parents were always working in the whole school, doing everything they could for everybody. And just, that's a lot of promotion. So share your vision and then remind them constantly of what you would like to see for the kids, for the school, and for your community. And lastly, I'd just like to thank all of y'all. This is a great group of people here. Thanks for inviting me to be a part of that. So, Richard.
Great stuff. And Jim does have like a summary document of some of the points that he just talked about, and we'll get that posted with the video on the website as well, so you can take some of those bullets. So the point of today, every program is a little bit different, but you just got to figure out what works in your community. And I hope just the wealth of information that you got today, it's not going to work with every band program, but maybe there's one thing you heard today that'll work with your band program. And that was our goal. We've got just a few minutes here. If there's any questions, you can go down there to the Q&A button at the bottom of the screen, and then Lee will bring you back in. And if we do have any specific questions, you can tell us what those are.
It looks like Keenan's had his hand up for a while, so I'm going to allow Keenan to talk.
Okay.
And ask his question live. Keenan has revoked that. So, yeah, guys, if you want to raise your hand as in your participation, I can bring you in and you can ask your question to our panel, or I can bring you in as a panelist so you can show your face, or you can ask a Q&A and we can answer from there.
Richard, while we're waiting on some of those questions to come through, I wanted to echo something that Jim said about the marketing. And he talked about how he's buying things for his community. Every staff member, administrator, all the way up to the top part of the county office has one of our band shirts. Same thing at the middle school, they have a band shirt. We love our maintenance guys because they really, I have a big building, so I'm kind of high maintenance for them. And we took the time one day to go buy them all some Hardee's biscuits, and we gave them a Tiger Band hat to wear. And so, and we bus drivers, because one year we gave them all Tiger Band keychains, so because they drive us everywhere. So stuff like that's really important.
And kind of along those lines, assuming we're waiting on questions still, but kind of what Kelly's hitting on and Jody did earlier, having dignitaries or elected officials, I feel like I'm late to the game and realizing how beneficial that can be. And also the fact that, you know, school board members are also elected officials who would certainly like to make sure that their constituents are happy, and then also reciprocate and welcome the opportunity to come show their face and be visible, and to make sure that those things are happening. And so that's been a huge boost. I know recently is interacting with our community elected officials who very much welcome. I wish someone would have, you know, and encouraged me to do that even more early on. Reach out. Yes, they want to make sure, they would love to come to an auditorium packed for a winter concert and be able to say, you know, thank you for supporting.
And especially during election season, when it's time for re-election, somehow their schedules get cleared up pretty quickly, and they're there. They come to the Meet the Band night. They'll come to the all-county concert. And, you know, I don't have a problem letting them have the microphone. We don't want to turn it into a political rally, but it never hurts to have someone of influence out in front of all of your supporters saying how much they support the band, because that can be important later on, especially when there's budgetary talks and things like that. You go back and say, well, I thought you said you supported the band, you know. And band parent organizations are routinely the largest, most visible, most active groups on campus and in your community, and your smart politicians know that and will, you know, look to them for support. So it's not a bad idea.
And Bernie, you saw, I think you mentioned that you were going to answer Amy Barris's question about to what extent would you put a middle school student in charge of social media? Her concern is that maybe they aren't mature enough to handle the responsibility.
Yeah, I wouldn't. But there's a way you can do it, and you can say you're going to be my social media person, and whatever you think needs to go on social media, you give them an email to send to you. You allow them to send it to you, and then you post it. That way you can clean up whatever may be a little, you know, the immaturity. You can clean it up. But again, and then you'd have to ask them about the different hashtags and all that type of stuff. Because like I said, I had no idea what they were talking about. You know, so, but there are certain things that you can just put a hashtag at the end of your phrase that allows it to have more visibility, if I said that right. So you may want to ask them about that, but I would say, okay, you're my social media person. Here's the email address you send anything to that you think we should be posting on our Instagram or whatever. I would do it that way for middle school kids. High school kids a little bit different. And again, even though they're in charge of it, they still have to they run it by me, and they know that. You know, they can't post anything, or else I'll take it down within. I was like, hey, y'all didn't tell me, so I take it down. You know, but yeah, that would be the way that I would handle that, if that helps.
And then I think, Jody, you said you're going to answer the question about, we talked about play music that relates. So much of the music being played these days is artsy, and that is very hard to get kids into, little on the audience. What do you think?
Well, without running the risk of creating an entirely different clinic, I think that it does relate to how you market yourself to your community and remain relevant, and why music matters, which is kind of the focus here. You don't necessarily have to pander. You don't have to play you don't have all what's on the radio, and you don't have to just 100% do what the kids are listening to in the moment, because that's going to change in the next moment. But how about a melody? How about something that is maybe part of the show being recognizable and familiar? Because, and I told this story in our pre-meeting, I had a conversation with another band director who swore up and down that his crowds loved his shows. And I said, well, actually what your crowd loves about your halftime show is your hot dogs, because that's where they're going. It became irrelevant to the audience. So you don't have to pander. You don't have to play, you know, the current whatever's popular that day, because like I said, it'll change next week. But I don't see anything wrong with providing kind of a familiarity, a home base. And then maybe you can take and do variations on that, and perhaps, and we do it all the time, we introduce something new to them, but we bring them back. We catch them at the beginning. Wow, I know that song. We're doing, you know, Aquarius, if we get to do marching band. And then we're going to go into other things. And it doesn't have to be hackneyed or cheap or anything. It can be done very well and still be artistic and be worth your time for all of these months that we do marching band. But again, this is another clinic perhaps. It's marching band. Hello, high school marching band. and it has its purpose, it has its place. And as Florida Bandmasters Association, what we're supposed to be doing is music education, not music competition, not music for the sake of another trophy on the wall or another banner in the band room. That's not true music education. We're supposed to use music to transport our students and to create those lifelong consumers of music that we all want. And we use music, I say this again, to teach our students how to be, because that's our big responsibility. And if we're losing our students because we're not choosing music that they even want to have anything to do with, then we've lost our contact with them. So again, that's another clinic, Richard.
Yeah, and I think what's cool, and this kind of goes back to something that Keith said about actually having questions that we have answers to. This whole situation we're in has allowed us to sit back and go, what is it that I really do? You know, when somebody meets me at the grocery store and says, I know you miss your kids, don't you? And the answer is yes. They don't ask me, hey, what you playing this fall? What you know, what are you going to do for concert? They want to know if I miss my kids, and we all say yes. And if we don't get to have marching band in the same sense that we normally do in the fall, I think that's a great opportunity for us to go, you know what's the purpose of my marching band? Maybe I'm going to do something completely different from worrying about that 7 minutes, 8 minutes, 9 minutes during halftime.
Richard,
take advantage of that.
Neil said something to us pre-meeting, and I think it's worth repeating. All of the decisions that we're having to make on all this unknown stuff, he said this: everything has to come down to this. What is best for the kids?
Amen.
Period. Thank you, Neil.
You're welcome.
Awesome. Well, it looks like we're about out of time. Looks like we don't have any other questions unless I'm missing that. Lee, are we good?
Oh, sorry, I think you're good.
All right, cool. Well, thank you so much. I hope that you guys have gotten something out of today at this incredible panel. Feel free to reach out to any of us. You can probably find all of our emails on some committee, probably, because we're all very vested in what the Florida Bandmasters do. Thank you for being here. Thank you, Jody, Bernie, Jim, Kelly, Keith, and Lee for helping us out. And hi, Neil. Good to see you.
All the time.
Yeah, I know. We can see your face now. You guys have a great year. Thank you again so much for being here.
Thank you.
See y'all later.
Thank you, panel.